Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Keep Indiana Learning. We have a real treat for you today with a very special guest. But before we get into it, let me do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Melissa Walley, and I am an innovation coach with Keep Indiana Learning, and then also an ed tech specialist with Hanover Community Schools in Cedar Lake, Indiana. I also serve on the HEC board, and I help manage the Northwest Indiana Coach Group. I'm an ISTE certified educator, and I'm working on the ISTE leadership certification as well. So, we have recently completed a book study series on digital for good by Richard Culatta, and Dianna and I are here today to take this to the next level. So, Dianna, can you start by telling a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Dianna Knox, and my bio reads very similar to Melissa's. I, too, am an innovation coach with Keep Indiana Learning, but I live in Brazil, Indiana, and I work for Clay Community Schools as a technology instructional specialist. And our titles sound different, but we do a lot of the same roles. I also serve on the HEC board. I'm just starting a new term here in January, and I co-lead the Indiana Canvas user group, and I serve on my local community foundation boards. I also am an ISTE certified educator and working on my ISTE certified instructional leader. So, whether you followed along with us in this book study, or if this is your first introduction to the book, today's session is going to be perfect for you because there is going to be something for everyone, and we are very excited for this time together. But Melissa, I'm going to let you do the honors.
Okay, so I am thrilled to welcome today's guest, Richard Culatta, the author of Digital for Good. Richard is the CEO of ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education, and ASCD, the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. Prior to this role, he served as Chief Innovation Officer for the state of Rhode Island and was appointed by President Barack Obama to lead the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Educational Technology. Now, I think we could spend the whole episode just unpacking those experiences, but to kick us off, Richard, what's on your mind as we begin today?
Well, I'm mostly just really excited to get to talk to you. This is a lot of fun. I love having these conversations. Thank you for the great work you're doing. It's also particularly fun for me. So we have family in Bloomington, and so we are just getting back from having spent the holidays in Indiana. So it just feels kind of only appropriate that the first conversation I'm having in the new year is with my friends from Indiana.
And what a time to be in Bloomington, Indiana.
Let me tell you, y'all, way to like make history. It was pretty awesome to be hanging out there. Yeah.
Well, we are so excited. So let's just hop right in. Digital for Good has been something that Melissa and I've talked about a lot. It defines our role so much of the time at work. And so when we had the opportunity to dive into your book, we loved it. But thinking about, from time of publication to now, things change. Right now, we're in this period of rapid fire change. If you could go back and add one chapter to Digital for Good today, what would that be and why?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. What would I add? The obvious one would be to talk about AI, right? And I do mention AI. When I wrote the book, AI existed, but it hadn't sort of blown up in the way that it has currently. So certainly could talk about how do we help think about using AI to become better humans, which is the idea of the book. And so I think that's certainly one thing. And I'm cheating because I'm going to add another one, which is I think I would add more. When the book was written, there still wasn't the kind of backlash around social media that we are, experiencing now. And I think, while I think there's some really positive things that are coming from finally a realization of really not having paid enough attention to social media and putting healthy guardrails. we also, just as humans, I think we just do this. We just swing so quickly to extremes. And so now we have this kind of approach that I'm hearing of like, well, ban all technology forever. Don't ever use any technology anywhere in your life, which is also a really bad idea, right? Like that does not help kids prepare for their future. And so I think I may have talked a little bit more about that, about this idea of like, great, I'm glad you're recognizing there are unhealthy uses of technology. Maybe the chapter would have been called "Don't Throw the Baby Out with the Bathwater," right? Like, don't lose all of the really good things that we can be doing with technology because we made some bad choices with how to use it in certain contexts early on.
That is such a great lead in to the next question, because self-awareness might be the most important digital skill that we can teach. And I think that we've all had that moment where we pick up our phone for one thing and then suddenly it's 30 minutes later and we never really accomplished the thing that we actually started to. Um, so how can we help students recognize when tech is supporting them versus when it's controlling them?
Oh, I love that. And that's really the heart of what I was trying to get at in the book. And I think, you know, there's lots of ways that we can do it, but one of them is to just ask the question. I mean, I know that sounds really simple, but just saying that, like, is this a case where technology is helping support you in what you want to do? Or is this a case where technology is derailing you from what you want to do? And I think just practicing, you know, I think about things that I learned as I was, anything, as I was learning another language, as I was learning another skill. When you have somebody asking you questions, it brings the awareness of the thing that you may or may not be doing, right? And so again, I know it sounds really simple, just saying like, hey, let's just pause for a second. Let's look at how how you're using technology right now. Is this helping accomplish your goal, or is it derailing you from your goal? And I think that's also really important as we have more and more AI. We talk a lot about this idea of can AI take away from learning? I was just on a call with somebody who was talking about, the problem with AI is it's just making learning too easy, right? It's just taking away the struggle of learning, and it should be hard. We should try to have effort into learning what we're learning, and AI is making it too easy. And I thought, that's a great example. There are cases where we want kids to struggle through something, right, in a good way. That's called productive struggle. Huge amounts of what happen in a kid's life, in a learning path, is what we would call unproductive struggle. It is not finding the information you need, finding the information, but it's at a level that is written above your ability to understand it. It's needing to synthesize information that you can't have. That's all wasted struggle. None of that struggle helps you get smarter, helps you get better. And so this question that you brought up, I think, really fits well for AI as well, because you can say, is this a case where AI is helping to reduce unproductive struggle, right? Or is it a case where it's actually taking away from the productive struggle, the part where you actually use your brain to think about an idea in more depth? And I think just asking that question is really helpful. How are we using the technology? Is it helping accomplish our goal, or is it derailing us from our goal? And the more we get used to asking that, the better we get at recognizing it ourselves.
I think that's so important, is bringing students back to it and allowing them and providing them with the opportunity to reflect and think about it themselves instead of making the decision for them. I love that idea.
I do too. Another audience that we work with quite a bit, and that you address in the book, is parents.
Sure.
And a talking point right now is that discussion of screen time, and lots of people are weighing in.
Mm-hmm.
An article came across today, I think I saw, where Utah is considering a law that would really restrict the use of educational technology, and I understand some of those merits, but I think about advice. And let me back it up. I know this is going to be dependent upon the age of the student. It's not a one-size-fits-all answer, but what strategies or advice do you give, or would you have, for parents who are just getting started with helping students manage the balance in technology use? Because I know you talked about in the book, not giving them a phone that's wide open and providing some of those guardrails to help scale them in. But a lot of parents feel very overwhelmed by those parental controls. We don't make it easy in this country to set those parental controls up.
That is true. My son, I have a son who just got a phone, and I'm saying phone in quotations because it's a phone with no data plan and very limited access to apps. But that's how we do it, right? This idea of this binary, like we have no access, and then all of a sudden you're going to get this fully featured phone with a data plan. Like that is a terrible idea. That's like saying, we've never taken driver's ed, we haven't even used a bike before, and I'm just going to hand you keys to a Ferrari. Like doesn't make sense. We don't do that. And so, but interestingly enough, to your point, when I went in to take this phone, it was a phone that used to be mine, and I wanted to sort of limit it in some ways, so it wouldn't have. That was our agreement. He understood that. He knew that, right? It was hard to do, right? It wasn't just a button that I could push. I would love it if the cell phone providers would just have a little slider, and you could just slide it all the way up or all the way down, and then gradually increase access. Look. We can do it. We absolutely can. The controls are there, but it does take a bit of, a bit of tweaking, a bit of wrangling. You got to go through and delete a bunch of apps. You got to go through and turn off some access. But that's how we provide that, that safe structure for kids to experience technology in a safe way. And we got to be really careful about that. One other thing I just want to add, you mentioned some of the conversations that we're starting to hear at the state level about banning technology in schools. And I think we have to be really careful about that, because the research that is being used in almost every case to support limiting tech use in schools is not research that aligns to tech use for education. What we're seeing is we're saying, whoa, there's problems with, with social media use at home. There's problem with technology use at home when there weren't effective boundaries and conditions put in place. And so by banning it, it took care of the problem there. Maybe we should do that in schools too, right? But the research actually doesn't support that. It's much different when you're using technology to support learning. And in fact, it's really critical that we are able to do that. Now, there are cases, Bailey is joining us here. Apparently he wants to be part of the conversation. So forgive me for having a little cameo appearance.
I think that's a great cameo appearance.
Anyway, what he wanted me to continue saying was I just think we have to be very careful, because during the pandemic, we very quickly in education started using a lot of technology. Some of that was used very well. Some of it was not used well. And so the idea of saying if we're using technology in ways that are supporting learning, that is really important. That is a skill that kids are going to need in order to function in future learning and future career. If we're using technology in ways that doesn't support learning, right? Clicking next through a bunch of slides, doing basically a worksheet but on a screen, amen, get rid of that, right? I am on board, but we have to be careful we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are some really important skills that kids need to learn. They need to learn how to research using digital tools. They need to learn how to problem solve doing digital tools. They need to learn how to collaborate with others using digital tools. Those are skills that they will need in order to thrive in the future. And if we get rid of that completely from schools, I really worry about them being able to be prepared for the jobs and future they're going to walk into.
You are so spot on. And it's so funny because everything that you have said leads perfectly into our next question that we have for you.
Just teeing it up for you, Melissa.
Thank you. So our next question has to do with educators, because obviously in our roles, we work with a lot of educators. A common theme that we sense is apprehension about turning our students loose as creators, when not all teachers feel like they have the skills or know how to do that creation. Or sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, I'll work on that later, but later never comes. And teachers have a lot on their plate, and some of that overwhelm might overshadow that need. So what kind of a pep talk or words of wisdom would you share to encourage them to just take that leap with trying out student creation?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, I empathize with the amount of time and just the amount of burden that we put on teachers. I was a former teacher. I work, with teachers every day. It's a lot, and I respect that deeply. And I want to be careful that we don't, load up teachers' plates with things that we don't need to. And we're kind of bad at that in education. We very quickly add things to teachers' plates, and we have to be careful about that. That said, when it comes to thinking about using technology, particularly when we think about tools like AI, these are, AI is not just another thing, right? AI is going to completely change how we learn, how we work, how we engage in the community. I believe AI, when used appropriately, is one of the most powerful tools to help us become better at being humans, right? It can supercharge us as humans. But that is something that happens when students are coached and guided through the process, which means we have to have teachers that understand what that looks like. And so I think the pep talk I would give is, this isn't just some other thing. It's not just some reading program that you now have to do. It's not just some new way of taking attendance, right? Like, this is a fundamental game changer. It's a tool that will change how we think about learning. And so it's critical to make the time for it. But there's a little bit of a silver lining there, which is, in almost every case, what I found is that teachers who really do learn about AI, embrace it, figure out how to use it, come back and say, there are things that used to take me 5 hours to do that I can now do in 10 minutes. And so the good news is, if you just take the plunge, dive in, explore, experience it, you'll actually end up saving some time in other ways. I think it will end up giving you time back. One last thing that you just shared, though, that I wanted to sort of not go by, is you used the word creator, which I think is really important. A lot of the AI use that I see right now, even from teachers, is sort of like using AI like a search engine. AI is a really bad search engine. Don't use AI as a search engine. Use a search engine as a search engine. Using AI to fuel creativity, to fuel creation, that's where it gets really exciting. And so thinking about how much of the stuff that we deliver, or that we ask our students to deliver, are we asking them to deliver as text? We're doing that because in the past, doing anything other than text took deep artistic skill or a whole bunch of multimedia production equipment, right? That we just didn't have time for, didn't have the ability for. That stuff is now all back on the table in a way that it wasn't before. Having kids explain a deep concept through a graphic novel or a graphic comic, right? That's actually very easy to do, even without deep artistic skill, if you have a teacher that can guide through it. I was working with a teacher the other day who was having their students design buildings of the future. These were young kids, buildings of the future, and they were ecologically friendly and photosynthesis, whatever they were doing, and solar, I don't remember what it was. But after they talked about the buildings, they used AI to actually generate what these buildings would look like. It brought it to life in a way that could not have if they were just trying to write a text description of buildings that, don't use a lot of power or whatever it was. Those are ways that we can add deep meaning when we use AI in really creative, curious kind of ways.
Yeah, I think that we have so many exciting opportunities, and like, I myself get so overwhelmed. Like, I feel like I have so much to share. Like, I don't have the time myself to get around to people to help them. I wish I could clone myself at times so that I could get all that information out. So sometimes I have to remind myself, like, just simmer down. You can overwhelm people.
And I think it's a journey, right? So this is not something that we have to just like learn overnight, right? And
Right.
I always joke about when anybody says they're an AI expert. I'm like, okay, well, you're lying, because there are no AI experts. I just got back from the UK. London has the Google DeepMind team, that builds all of their AI. Right, the people on the team are like, we're not experts. We're figuring this out as we go. So I say that because if anybody thinks you're way behind, that's a rounding error from the people who are way out ahead. Like, there is no way out ahead on this one yet. And so the pressure, we need to take it off. But what we can't do is just sit idly by. if we want to do education right, if we want to do AI right, there has to be educator fingerprints all over it. And we need educators involved, participating. Doesn't have to be something that happens all at once, no pressure, but yes, start the journey.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I wonder how many of them their spark would be renewed if they can take some of that load off of their managerial tasks that they have to do, and they can focus back on the people and the creative components that probably drew them to this in the first place.
I love it. And just simple things. We should have one more example on this. Like, one of the things that most frustrated me when I was teaching was how hard it was to personalize learning to individual students, right? If I had a kid who just really loved baseball or whatever, right? Like designing an activity around a particular state standard for that kid, like I didn't have time to do that. I can jump into AI and just say, here's the standard. This kid loves baseball. Give me an activity that aligns with what I'm doing that, involves baseball. Bam, there you go. 2, 3, 4 examples, right? That's the sort of thing that I would have just loved to have been able to do, and I didn't have time for. And so being able to let it be that magic wand that can do some of those things that just used to take too long, that's really exciting. It's a really exciting time to be in education.
I agree. Leaders. There's a lot of noise in education from all facets, not just technology. It is a heavy time to move into that leadership role, whether it's a building leadership or district leadership. And we're seeing record numbers of people leaving education, teachers and leaders alike. Technology, we've already talked about this. We start to hear that push for pencil, paper, putting devices on shelves. But you've already said this. That's the same thought Melissa and I had. We are preparing students for their futures. Shelving technology is not the right course of action. But those leaders feel a lot of pressure. So what is an encouraging takeaway you would think you would want education leaders to remember when this work feels especially hard?
That's a great question. I mean, look, one of the things that we know leaders make such a huge difference, especially building level leaders. If you look at sort of the kind of a point where there's most impact, right? Most ability to really determine outcomes, it's really those building level leaders, because they're able to create that culture where learning is exciting, where we love learning. Learning has gotten it's gotten too serious. It's gotten too, what I'm looking for. There's just not enough joy in learning, I think. And I think that's a result of post-pandemic, like we're behind, we gotta, test more, and we gotta drill more. And I get we have some gaps that we have to make up. I'm not minimizing that at all, but learning needs to be joyful. It needs to be fun. And that's when when kids love learning, that's when the learning actually happens much more quickly than when they're forced to do it, right? So all that to say, building leaders, I would just, my word of advice is and other leaders, right, at district level, this applies to all leaders. Please keep looking for ways to bring joy back into the learning. When you're having a moment where it's feeling a little overwhelming, pause, breathe, and find some ways to make the conversation more joyful. And I'll share something else as a bit of a final thought here. You mentioned the number of, a lot of teachers have left the field, a lot of leaders left the field. That is true, and we do, that. I don't mean to minimize that at all. But I want to say something about the teachers and leaders that I'm seeing coming in to take their place. There are some amazing, creative, energetic educators that are entering the field. When you have a big turnover, it's hard because a lot of experience walks out the door, but a lot of energy walks in the door. And so while, yes, we've been through a period of a lot of transition in education, the excitement, the quality of the educators that we're bringing in, they're awesome. And so I'm actually really jazzed about what education is going to look like moving forward, just because of the caliber of new leaders that are now stepping in to fill those places of those leaders that have left, and new teachers that are now stepping in many cases to fill the places of the people who have stepped up to become those leaders.
What a positive spin on that. I love that. And I'm going to think about it that way from now on. So during each episode, we have presented a challenge based on the chapter to our viewers. And it's been a fun way to kind of extend that reading into our schools and classrooms and homes. And so we'd like to include you on this challenge. It really comes down to the question of if the readers can take away just one idea from the book, what would you want it to be? But if we take that question to the next level, knowing that educators and leaders can use some encouragement regarding the use of tech with students and thinking about digital for good, how would you challenge our listeners to create a positive ripple this month? So maybe like take that thought about digital for good and using tech and spread it. Like, how would you, what does that make you think about?
Oh man, that's so great. It makes me think a lot of things. It's hard to pick a thing, but I'll
Yeah.
tell you one of the things that was really interesting when I was writing Digital for Good and looking at interviewing people and sort of doing some of the research for it. One of the things that what I really saw was the power of modeling good behavior. And I think an example that I use in the book, excuse me, is when I was walking in a park somewhere and there was a bag of trash or something on the ground that I saw at one point, and I went and I just threw it away. Didn't say anything to my kid who was with me. I wasn't even really trying to like make it into a learning moment. I just saw a wrapper and I threw it away. The next time we went to the park, there was a wrapper on the ground, and without saying anything, he picked it up and threw it away. And that power of modeling, it's so strong, right? Our kids learn so much more by modeling our behavior than they do from what we tell them. And so my thing, and this plays into your, play it forward a little bit, excuse me, is model good behavior. Show how you're using technology to make the world a better place. Show how you're using technology to make you more curious. Show how you're using technology to hear different viewpoints. To challenge your thinking, right? As you model that for kids, they will learn and they will do the same thing. And so that would be my ask, to try to do more modeling of good use of technology to help us be all more creative and more curious.
I love that. And I think that will make a difference.
I do too. I agree. Well, gosh, this time has passed so quickly. And we know that you are incredibly busy, and we appreciate you spending a bit of time to discuss this topic that's near and dear to our hearts, as I know it is yours. Any final thoughts, maybe before we wrap it up for the day?
I think my final thought would just be, I'm so grateful for the people that are continuing to stay in education, to be leaders in education. The impact you have is just enormous. And so please keep doing what you're doing. Like it is just, I'm so incredibly grateful for the time and energy that you spend helping us navigate this new world of technology combined with how we learn. And the more you can help ask that question, how do we use tech for good? How do we use technology to help us be better at being human? Right? That is such a powerful question. It's such powerful work. And I'm just so grateful for the teachers and leaders that are willing to do that.
Okay, that is perfect. So thank you so much, because your insights, your thoughts, very valuable. I know I speak for Melissa and I both, we truly enjoyed this book. And so thank you again for taking the time to join us, and keep Indiana learning, keep reading. Don't forget that you can access this and many more fantastic resources on the Keep Indiana Learning YouTube, the Keep Indiana Learning website. There's always something new, something for everyone. So keep following along. Thanks for joining us.